Now, a little bit more of a impactful change here. We got an important one. HVAC people in the world, if you're touching furnaces or AC units, if you're trying to check them, clean them, replace filters, and service them, there were big changes to the Xactimate price list in October 2021. Changes that I think, Whatley, you and I like. So let's take a look at the changes to these furnace and AC related line items.
Yeah, I think these changes are going to be the largest impact to claim settlement for this month. So let's really explore in depth these furnace line items. Go ahead and take the lead on this.
All right. Hello, and welcome to another edition of the Price List Update Summary video series by Actionable Insights. You've got Harrison here and you've got Whatley there, and we're here to talk about the changes to the Xactimate price list in October 2021. Whatley, we've got another exciting month here of content. If you are curious what we do, if this is your first price list update summary video that you're watching, our goal in this series is to go over what new line items were added to the Xactimate price list and what changed, what existing line items saw changes and modifications. We want to give you purpose. We want to give you context. We want you to know how these line items should be used when you're using Xactimate to settle property insurance claims. If you like what you see in this video series, please come join us in training and opportunities. We have lots of estimating and invoicing resources at getinsights.org. We just had an Xactimate estimating and digital assets class this month. If you're curious to learn more about Xactimate Mobile with the new LiDAR AR sketch options, we're going to have a standalone class on that towards the end of November. So lots of opportunities to learn with actionable insights. Whatley, let's jump into the October 2021 changes.
Before we do, can I ask for something quickly from our audience?
Yeah.
We are this close to being able to control our YouTube channel such that we can shut off the ads for you guys. So like, share, subscribe to the YouTube channel. And that hopefully will get us over the line where we can just shut the ads off. Like, we're not trying to turn ads on. We're trying to turn them off for you. So anyhow, get on board with us. In so doing, we'd appreciate it. Just like, share, subscribe.
Awesome. All right. So what changes do we have to the Xactimate price list this month? We have 7 new line items to discuss. As always, as you can see on my screen in front of us, I've got an Xactimate estimate ESX file open on the left. This has the October 2021 price list. On the right, I have the eService Center link. This is where Xactware puts out the information about what new line items came out.
This looks different.
Yes. So that's the first thing I want to highlight, Whatley, is that over the years, as we've done this video series, you will see September 2021 and essentially a wall of text that says, here's your new line items that came out. And one of the reasons we started this video series was to ensure that people understood the purpose and context behind each of these. It's one thing to just see, hey, there's a new line item for rekeying a lock, but we want to dive into it. We want to look at the labor trade codes, the yields, the direct yields,
the component buildup.
And now you'll see in the new October 2021, we actually have more information that's provided when they are telling us what line items are coming out. This is extremely helpful for someone when they're just looking for the first time, they're trying to figure out what line items came out. So we can continue to build by doing that due diligence, right? That you and I like to do, diving into line items and really breaking them down so people understand them as a part of the series. But in the meantime, I love to see stuff like this. This just shows that somebody in the pricing department is thinking about how is our stuff being downloaded and digested? How can we give more information to those in the industry that are using this software to use it effectively? So I love just visual changes like this and providing us more clarity, more information. Now it's our job to do the best that we can to dive into the numbers here. So you ready?
Let's do it.
Okay. 7 new line items. First one I want to talk about is a new line item in the FNC category here called additional labor charge for rounded corners. And if you jump into the additional item information, you can see that this item is intended to account for the additional time/cuts when fitting trim to a rounded corner. This item is priced per corner, and it could apply to multiple types of trim being installed in the same room, i.e. the same corner applied to crown molding and base trim. The quantity entered would be 2. So in preparing for this, you and I did a lot of research looking for some images to figure out, okay, this is priced per corner and it's additional labor charge for rounded corners. And one of the things that you and I wanted to talk about was an addition not too long ago of baseboard corner blocks. So I'm going to start right here and go to Google Images for an example of a baseboard corner block. And it is of our belief that if this is the only trim that you're installing on a rounded corner, just this radius corner block, then you would use just the baseboard corner block line item alone. you would not flank it or contemplate it with this additional labor charge for rounded corners.
I think we should say, that probably represent Actionable's approach to claim settlement. If you're feeling spicy and you want to try to justify both, then have at it. But I think it puts the adjuster in a little bit more precarious place to approve both line items for every outside corner.
So what examples or scenarios would somebody use this additional labor charge for rounded corners? And you can start to look at other applications. Whatley, you talked about your house has something similar. This is a rounded corner here, but not a radius corner block. But they're still attempting to provide some kind of, concessions around that corner.
Yeah, thank God. I think that's like the cheapest way you can do it. So our KB builders is like, here you go, Whatley, you can have this. I wish they would have used corner blocks, but this is how ours is done at our place. And it's probably the most customary way to approach bullnose when you're dealing with sub 4-inch base molding. As you start to get higher and higher base molding, you get a greater and greater profile. And as you get greater and greater profile, this gets more and more precarious to install it this way. You can get away with this like with a 2-inch base molding without any trouble at all.
Makes a lot of sense. So in a calculation, for an example, in this calculation, when you're installing your baseboard, you would have a calculation of 1 for this rounded corner in which you're applying this line item.
Well, yes, but to be clear, there's 2 there
here.
That are
yes,
shown,
this would be
but
the
that might
second
be
rounded
put
corner.
in the other room, is what Harrison's implying. So, if it was a square break and it was all clearly in that individual room, then this would be a calculation of 2.
Yeah, each corner, 1 calculation of 1.
Yeah, show them outside corner versus inside corner. I think that will help.
So outside corner, inside corner. This is an example that, as we were talking about, where do these rounded corners come into play? Often you will find them on the outside corner of a wall that's sticking out like this. We were actually taking a look at the sketch aspects here to create our own outside corners versus inside corners, in ensuring that we were using this calculation in these corners correctly. One other one I wanted to bring up here was this, where do I really see this line item, this add 4 corners, additional labor charge for rounded corners being used the most? Probably in something like crown molding. That's an application where if you're applying crown molding to a rounded corner, a rounded outside corner, you would add a calculation 1 for each outside corner that you're applying that rounded crown molding to.
Yep.
All right. Well done. That was a fun one. That was an interesting one to analyze and see kind of what is this and how it came out and how does this interplay with the other existing line items. All right. Next one I want to talk about is tearing off insulation board, no haul off. So you and I scoured the price list to look for, hey, usually when a new line item comes out that says no hauling, that means there was an existing line item that had hauling. But this is one of those scenarios where it's a new line item where there was no previous hauling, no hauling options. It's just a brand new line item. So while I break down, why is the pricing department adding a line item for tearing off insulation board now?
Well, I should clarify that when we've seen a lot of these no bagging line items. So for WTR, right, like maybe 100 of those have been added in the last 3 years. And so there's been a move towards, tear out without the bagging component as separate. This is a bit different. Roofing is interesting how some of the roofing line items include the haul off and disposal. It's really the only category I can think that operates that way. And so this particular one says, hey, this is excludes, the haul off straight away. And there wasn't any other tear off insulation or line item we could find. And my guess as to why there isn't an existing one is this insulation board. I think it was only customary after like Title 24 was introduced, at least as it relates in California. And so that's maybe 10, 15 years old. So now we're just finally seeing claims come back around where there is insulation board. And now it's needing to get torn off. And so now the pricing department is just responding to that building material being introduced into the ecosystem.
Well said. Lastly, there were 5 new line items around downdraft vents. Now, I have an old home from the 60s, and we just remodeled the kitchen, and I didn't even think about adding a downdraft vent. And you yourself might be asking, what is a downdraft vent? And I have some pictures from Google Images to give an example of these downdraft vents next to the ovens, next to the stovetops that pop up, pop down, right? It's an opportunity that while you're cooking, fire it on. So obviously, Nothing existed for this before in the Xactimate price list. So if you're coming across a downdraft vent in a kitchen, then you now have line items to be able to invoice for replacing, removing, and even detaching and reset as a standalone line item.
Yeah, and there probably would be warranted to include that with a myriad of other ductwork line items to get that to the exterior of the property. So keep that in mind.
All right. That's the new line items for October. 7 new line items. Let's now jump to the line item changes. On the left side of my screen, I will have the September 2021 price list with line items, and then October 2021, same line items, but let's take a look at the various changes. If you are wondering where this is in the e-service center, if you go past the new line items, you'll see changes, structural price list items modified for the October 2021 price list. So we're going to break down these changes here. Let's take a look at the framing, the deck planking line item. I'm going to bring this up and I'm going to go ahead and hit the information on both of these. There was a change to the plus replace assembly to include assumptions for a hidden fastening system. So if you go to September 2021 and you look at the material in this deck planking line item, it was galvanized nails. But moving into October 2021, they've updated that material to a hidden fastener with screw system. This makes sense. I just had a deck installed at my house. We elected for the hidden fastener with screw systems as much as we could. We didn't want to see the nails everywhere. So it seems like with modern building techniques, Xactimate is making changes to the line item to reflect what consumers are choosing for, or certainly what exists in the building materials now. Would you agree? Do you think this is a reasonable change to move from galvanized nails to this hidden fastener with screw system?
Yeah, the pricing department is just following what's the more customary installation method. And so using screws on a deck is by far and away commonplace now, as opposed to nails. Nails, they break down a lot quicker and they squeak and rust easier, so on. This is just the way that it's done nowadays.
Yep. So great to see a change like that. Now, a little bit more of a impactful change here. We got an important one. HVAC people in the world, if you're touching furnaces or AC units, if you're trying to check them, clean them, replace filters, and service them, there were big changes to the Xactimate price list in October 2021. Changes that I think, Whatley, you and I like. So let's take a look at the changes to these furnace and AC related line items.
Yeah, I think these changes are going to be the largest impact to claim settlement for this month. So let's really explore in depth these furnace line items. Go ahead and take the lead on this.
All right. So we have 3 line items here. Furnace, check, clean, replace filters, and service, heavy clean. And then traditionally there was a 3rd line item for furnace with AC. And what Xactimate must have heard, and you and I have heard in the years trying to look at these line items, how do I tackle with a furnace? How do I tackle with an AC? Do I have to use this heavy clean line item that does both? Right? Maybe it's a normal clean or a lighter clean on each individual. So you'll see that the existing furnace, check, clean, replace filters, and service line items were updated to contemplate furnace or AC, meaning that if you are checking, cleaning, replacing filters, and servicing of a furnace, you would use this line item, HVC FRCLN. If you are checking, cleaning, replacing filters, and servicing an AC, you would use the same line item. And there was a big change to the direct yield component for the labor as a result, because traditionally, the September 2021 version that was just for furnaces, essentially, you had a direct yield of 1, heating, AC, mechanic, 1 for here. But they've updated it to 0.75 here, meaning you are less productive when working on either a furnace or AC. They're really trying to take this line item and make it applicable to multiple scenarios, which you and I is actually, sometimes people want the individual line item for every activity. Right. But when you can find a line item that contemplates what goes into performing these activities and you can use it in multiple scenarios, it tends to go a long way in coming to a reasonable scope as to what's reasonable and customary. So this is interesting as well, because you did see a change to the existing furnace with AC line item, meaning, you had a unit price of $487 in the San Diego price list, and now you've got a unit of $605. That's $130 or $120 increase. So how did that happen? The material furnace filter didn't change. The cleaner degreaser didn't change, but the labor component, specifically the direct yield of this, went from 0.4 to 0.32.
Yeah, because now they're clearly saying this is a furnace that includes an AC unit. A lot of times those would have separate filters. Certainly there would be a lot more work associated with that activity. A lot of the modern builds out here in California, you've got the furnace as a separate piece of equipment, separate from the AC.
Yeah, so let's be clear here. In general, if you are going to check, clean, normal clean, replace filters and service either a furnace or an air conditioner, you now use HVC FRCLN. If you need to do a heavy clean to either a furnace or an AC, you would do HVC FRCLN plus. If you have a combo unit, furnace and AC, and need to perform a heavy clean, you would use the combo line item HVC FRCLN AC furnace with AC.
So it seems like there kind of should be an NAC minus line item, for just like the average clean. That's what is really missing and a bit of a deficit. But anyhow, you can get through this by the mix of the FR CLN if you want to just go average.
Makes a lot of sense. Plus, we can provide some feedback. Maybe we'll see some additional updates in the future to provide a normal clean line item furnace with AC.
Yeah, I think that's a fairly common installation method.
Okay.
And, I would prefer as an adjuster to approve a non-heavy clean version of that line item unless it would be in a fire type situation.
Which is similar to some of our teaching curriculum on light cleans versus heavy cleans and what's needed for the majority of claim scenarios.
Yep.
Okay. Taking a look at this roofing felting, you'll notice it's a plus replacement activity, roofing felt synthetic underlayment. And it says here in the update, modify the component yield to include assumptions for material overlap. So when you jump into the additional information here, we're going to take a look at the material component from September to October. You can see a slight price difference already, but what you primarily see is a direct yield change from 10 squares per roll to 9.22, meaning you're getting a little bit less set of each roll. And why did Xact need to contemplate for material overlap assumptions here? Some of the materials in Xactimate have built-in waste percentages. You can see those down here when you're looking at assembly info, supporting events. Some materials have a 10 here for a 10% material.
Yeah, most do.
Assumed material waste percentage. But there's no supporting events in this particular roofing synthetic underlayment roofing felt. So in order to contemplate the assumptions for material overlap, they've updated the direct yield of the material component to contemplate that overlap. What are your thoughts on this kind of change?
It's interesting that somebody was looking at the price list this granular to identify this oversight. But yeah, that's definitely the way that it should be done. Like Harrison said, you could have gotten away with the supporting events working, say, the way like R13 paperback insulation is, where you get 10% waste on those. But in this particular case, there's no waste. So we have to assume some overlap. Otherwise, that underlayment's not doing anything without some overlap. So they just made that small adjustment. So it's interesting. I don't know where that one came from. Maybe some roofing contractor identified it, or just as likely as not, Pine's department, while they were doing research, they recognized a little deficit, and then they just made the warranted change.
Makes sense. 4 removal roofing line items here around insulation, fiberglass board, perlite board, ISO board. These changes apply to all sizes of this type of board. I've just simplified to the 1-inch for comparison purposes. You'll note a pretty significant change from $50 per square to $64. So where does this actual change come from? What they have updated in these roofing insulation removal line items. They've added equipment components and added text to note the assumption for haul off. So now when you are removing insulation fiberglass board as part of a roof, it will include the landfill charge, the equipment component and the landfill charge. So now this line item includes dump fees, hauling, and disposable and labor costs to remove fiberglass insulation board. This might seem, we've seen some line items in the past, like temporary toilet, where they added delivery and pickup to the line item. This is an example to me where there are existing line items in roofing that include hauling and dump off. And what you and I have seen, if a bunch of line items in roofing have hauling and then the other ones that you need don't, it can get kind of messy when invoicing for the additional hauling because it's unclear of what's already included and what's not.
Yeah. So it is unclear. I think that's a problem that this probably happens often in claim settlement for roofing is it's hard to know when you're double dipping or when it's warranted.
So in this example, when removing insulation of roofing, we are essentially consolidating the line items in the roofing category to ensure that they include hauling. So it's clear whether or not that you need to invoice for hauling independently when using these line items. All right. Lastly, there's a slight modification yield change in lift carpet for drying after hours. It's just in the after hours category. If you click edit here on the labor component, you'll see a direct yield change from 130 to 124.75. So not a significant change. Obviously, Xact identified something in the after hours lifting carpet for drying line item that needed to be addressed. But again, it's a good exercise. If you guys aren't used to going through these line items, here, I'll maximize this for a moment. Going to the unit price, clicking this eye next to the replace price and looking at what components exist, hitting edit to get some assembly information, direct yields, understanding supporting events. This is how you guys can access this information when you're looking at any individual line item in Xactimate and trying to figure out how do I use this thing? Is this what I'm looking for? All right. Lastly, there was an update. It's kind of just like an update, a correction. The labor minimum for this HMR HEPA W line item here. Labor minimum for trade code was a hazardous material remediation technician, but for some reason, the minimum group, the labor minimum group it was tied to was the WTR category. You'll see here in October now, we have it is associated with the HMR minimum group. So if you are taking a look at your labor minimums, it's possible that those using the HMR HEPA W, HEPA vacuum and exposed framings walls per square foot line item, it might have been triggering a WTR labor minimum when you didn't mean it to. So now it's appropriately attached to the HMR labor minimum side of things, which we like.
You got it.
All right. Lastly, let's take a look at what is, fun list. Santa is preparing for Christmas here. You will see some new line items around Xbox controllers, PlayStation controllers, and the video games for these newer consoles. These are all added to the contents related line items in the October 2021 price list. There's also been some changes to iPads and how they are described as the technology continues to update. They're not creating individual line items for every iPad that exists, but they are providing an update to the available options based on the line items that are there. And lastly, what's coming? We always like to leave people with, hey, Xact tries to give us an idea of what line items are we going to see in November and beyond. You'll see items for door frames only for storefronts, and you'll see items for removing wall tile in the water extraction and remediation category. So that's a big
see
one.
That second one, because you and I manage that question at least once a month out on Xact Ninjas. How do I demo this tile shower surround? And there's never been a particularly good answer for that without defaulting to some mix of labor hours, which is not how we love to answer questions. So it looks like that's going to be overcome by events in the next month or two. So that's cool.
Looking forward to it. Xact has seen the need or heard the need that we need line items that address wall tile demolition. So I am also looking forward to seeing how that comes out and what it looks like. Hopefully it comes next month. So,
and guys, what do you do with the shower pan? That'll be interesting.
Yeah.
Maybe that's a separate line item. Maybe it includes it. I'm interested to see how that comes out.
We'll take a look. All right. For those insiders that are watching, thank you. Thank you for joining us for the October 2021 price list update summaries video. I hope you guys understand the new line items that came out and the best ways to use them when settling claims. Please, no matter what platform you're watching on, follow us, subscribe. Every little subscribe and like helps us be able to do more in this industry and impact trying to preserve the health of the property insurance ecosystem in the best way we can, providing this great content. If you have any questions, comment below. A reminder that the best place to watch all of our priceless update summaries videos is at our website, getinsights.org. You will see all the line items that we discuss in every video. You can click a line item and it will jump directly to that point in the video where we talk about that line item. So you can always watch the 20 to 40 minute video, but you can also just click and see exactly what you want to hear us talk about a particular line item that came out. Whatley, you got anything else for him?
Yeah, just off the cuff, if you guys circulate it within your companies, it's a pretty customary that this video series gets shared company wide. But if you do that within your company, just comment down below and somebody from Harrison's team will, I don't know, do a little something special for you. So let us know if you circulated it company wide. We appreciate all those additional shares, as Harrison mentioned.
All right. In the meantime, good luck settling those claims out there. Thank you.
Keep building.